Hey y'all, I'm Courtney.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is Bodice Siblings,
the podcast where we read all the books we used to steal off our grandmother's nightstands.
And then we drink about it.
Hey y'all. Sarah's with me too. We keep messing up the hey y'all, so we're just powering through that hey y'all. But today, as part of our post March COVID pandemic tradition, natural disasters, all that, we have the one Miss Martha Waters with us, and we are here to talk about the newest in her Regency Vows series, To Swoon and To Spar. So, minus bad introductions aside, welcome, Martha.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You can just throw a hey y'all in there too, because it's been a,
I did live in North Carolina for 14 years, and ever since I've moved to Maine, I've caught myself saying y'all less. I'm trying to, I'm feeling pressured by the Yankee culture up here, and so I've stopped saying it as much. So really, I feel like this is very troubling, and I should just start saying y'all all the time now.
I feel like the Mainers would look at you all strange and be like, you're not from here. I don't know. I just imagine, I know people from Maine, but because of Stephen King, I just assume that they all have some kind of nefarious, backstory. And
they're all evil.
Ready to to feed you to an alien clown, I'm like, I know about you. So
my experience thus far has been that they're all almost freakishly nice, but maybe that's all part of the plan.
Mm-hmm. It's part of their big ruse. Yeah.
So tell us what's been going on in your life since we saw you last year.
I know. I love these little once a year check-ins that we do now.
Mm-hmm. Hey guys.
So hello. I have been mainly hanging out in my apartment writing books and or at the library. I work in a public library in the children's section, so I'm either at home writing romance novels or at the library fending off terrifying germy hordes of 4-year-olds. So, it's really a glamorous existence around here. But I'm currently on deadline for the 5th and final book in the Regency Vows series, which will be coming out next spring. So I'm sure I'll be talking to you again then about that. So my life, I feel like I have not much to report at the moment because my life basically consists of me sitting inside my apartment having a panic attack in front of my laptop for many hours a day. So, it's good times all around. Forward to my editor and publicist listening to this and being like, oh my God, why do we let her talk to other people?
Well, I'm just always excited to talk to you. I feel a small sense of ownership, whenever I see your books in the store or at the library. I'm like, that's our girl.
So we're Martha Waters hipsters. We before.
We did.
I mean, truly, people who, considering how bad the timing was for my first book coming out in April 2020, I feel like the people who actually read the first book right when it came out, it's that's a very small and elite club because that was a really bad time for a book release. So I think you guys should feel like Martha Waters hipsters because I don't think there are that many people who read the first book when it came out or before even.
Yeah, so I guess last year would have been probably, and I guess this year too, because when your first couple came out, we were in the midst of pandemic and you didn't really get to do the whole new book tour. So how was that? How was getting to do that? Did it was it what you thought it would be?
It was really great. I went down, even though I live in Maine, I had just moved to Maine less than 2 years ago. So last year I went back down to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where I had lived for a long time to do my launch in person there because I wanted to be able to kind of have all my friends and family come. And also selfishly, North Carolina in early April is much nicer than Maine in early April. And yes. I wanted happy springtime weather. So it was really great. My best friend from high school flew up from Florida for it. My dad came up from Florida. And it was really great. It was really fun to get to do a launch where I wasn't just staring at myself in a Zoom screen. But also I don't know, I had it was such a great day. I had such a great time. And it also I wasn't really expecting this reaction. I thought I was just going to be wow, this is so exciting. But it honestly made me sad that I hadn't gotten to do that with the first one. I think it really gave me because I had a couple of friends who had their debut novel come out around the same time last year that my third book was coming out. And they were I feel like the 2022 debuts were the first like full year of debuts where most of them were getting to do their launches in person after the nightmare that was 2020 and 2021. And so to like watch my friends get to have like their like first book experience be kind of like how they had dreamed it being, I was like, I don't know, it made me like feel kind of jealous, honestly. Like it was really fun getting to do it for my third book, but I was like, I feel like I would have appreciated this even more if I had gotten to do it for the first one, which obviously like me not getting to launch my book who I wanted to is like the least sad thing to happen because of the pandemic, but it's just the way it
well,
like,
it's your sad thing though.
Yeah, it's my sad thing. It's how it impacted my life. Like I have a friend who had to like cancel her wedding because of the pandemic, and so that's like her sad thing. My sad thing is that I didn't get to launch my first book with other people. But yeah, but I'm doing a launch up here in Maine for the first time this year, in person. So yeah, it's very strange. I'm like, oh yes, I will go to a bookstore in person and speak to other humans and like sign their books for them instead of just kind of like having my friends watch from their various homes on a Zoom screen. So it's very exciting.
It also has to like be wild because again, like Sarah was saying, I'll go into a bookstore and I'll see your book and it's like I'm like, oh, I should take a picture and send it to her. And I'm like, I'm sure she knows her books are in the bookstore, but like it's got to be wild to go into.
It's
a
still
place
exciting
and, like,
though.
Like, like just that's got to be a unique.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I would never get tired of it. You know.
Yeah, and well, I think especially because like my first book, I didn't see it on shelves for 2.5 months after it came out, so I feel like I have like catch up time that I need. Where especially like with the first one, like the later ones I've been able to see them on shelves, but when people send me a picture of the first one still in bookstores, I'm like, oh my god, like it's still there are people who are actually reading it. Like it's, I don't know, it still feels I was convinced my career was ruined by COVID, so it's still very thrilling for me whenever anyone sends me a picture of their,
yeah. I mean, like I just can't even imagine what, you spend all this effort and all this energy and put all yourself into a book and then like you drop it into the middle of a tornado,
Yeah. It's not, I wouldn't recommend it, like 0 out of 10, but yeah, so I still do get like weirdly excited. It's really cool when people send me pictures from other countries also. Like I have a lot of readers in the UK who will like send me pictures of like the UK edition of the book, and I'm like, oh, there's a person in the country where the book is set that's reading the book. This feels very shocking to me. So
that is very exciting. So how many international editions do you have now?
So it's published in the UK Germany and France, and an Italian edition just came out for the first one, and I can't remember like where we are because like there's such a lag with the translations, especially like it takes a while to translate a book, obviously. So those ones are always delayed, like behind the US and UK edition, and I'll get like I have this like really lovely a couple of different like readers in France who've emailed me being like, when's the third one coming out in France? Because the first two are out there. And I'm like, oh, I have no idea. Like,
no, you had nothing to do with that part.
I had nothing to do with this. It's like, I've never even spoken to the editor at the French publisher that publishes my books there. So I truly, like, my US editor will send me a couple copies of each foreign edition, like, as she receives them. But other than that, I'm like, I have no information for you. But, it is very cool.
Yeah, that is so exciting. So tell us about this book. Tell us about your most recent one and why we should go get it.
So the new one is To Swoon and To Spar, and I wasn't entirely intending to write this book. It was one where I wasn't sure I was going to give this character a love story. I was possibly going to just skip this one and go straight to what is now going to be the last book in the series. But while I was on deadline for the third book, I woke up one morning with the idea for this one like fully formed in my brain, and so I sent an email to my agent where I was like, do you think it would be weird if I wrote a book about a haunted house like in Cornwall on the coast, where it's not actually haunted, it's just a wife trying to scare off her husband because she doesn't want him there, and so like stages a haunting at their house. And I was kind of like, I don't know what my agent's reaction to this is going to be. And she was like, I would love for you to write that. And I'm kind of obsessed with it. And I was like, oh, well, great. Then that's what I'm going to write. So that's what this book is. It is the hero, Penvale. He has like basically his parents died when he was young. Their ancestral home was sold off. And he's kind of spent his whole adult life fixated on the idea of like being able to buy it back from his uncle, who is the one who purchased it. And the heroine, Jane, is the sort of ward of this dreadful uncle of Penvale's. And she really doesn't like her guardian. And so she starts haunting the house in Cornwall, so he'll go away and just like spend more time in London and leave her alone. But instead he's like, oh, this seems like more trouble than it's worth. Like, I've got this ward that I need to get married, and I've got this house that appears to be haunted. So he goes to his nephew, Penvale, and is like, I'll sell you the house if you will marry my ward. And Penvale's kind of like, yeah, sure, why not? And so Jane is like, okay, well, that's fine. If I scared away one man with a haunted house, I can just, the playbook already exists. So I'll just continue haunting my house and scare away this other man that I'm being forced to marry. But because this is a romance novel, things do not go according to plan, and they catch feelings for each other after many hijinks. Sorry, my cat is like trying to, Puffin, stop. She's trying to look at, no, ow.
She's like, pay attention to me.
She's trying to attack the cord on my headphones, but it's like resting right on my leg. So she's just like clawing at my knees right now.
It sounds like every Victoria Holt book, except sweeter and nicer. Since usually the Victoria Holt books were literally attempted murder, and they'd had to like introduce some other dude to be the romantic interest.
Yeah,
because like the current dude who was the hot dude was always the one who was trying to murder you. Yeah, turns out
you can't trust attractive men. Like, come on.
Right?
No,
yeah.
Ever since I announced the book, a lot of people have been like, "Oh, is this kind of like a Bronte novel, like Jane Eyre or something?" And I was like, no. I mean, no. My thinking is more like Northanger Abbey, because I feel like not comparing myself to Jane Austen, but I do feel like in tone, my books are more similar to Austen novels than they are to Bronte's, because they're comedies of manners and they're a little less tortured and angsty. And so I definitely
no attic wife. There's nobody stuffed up in the attic.
No women are locked in attics in any of my books. I'm very proud to use that as a selling point for my novels.
There we go. That should go on the dust jacket of the next one.
I think they should really
no attic wives.
They should start letting me. My publisher should start letting me create all the like jacket copy for my books, because I mean, who can say what incredible selling points I would come up with if I were left to my own devices. But yeah, so it's definitely more of a like Northanger Abbey vibe, like sort of a spoof of a Gothic novel, which was a lot of fun to write, honestly.
So you said that the next one is planned. Obviously, it doesn't always work out as a plan, but the next one's supposed to be the last book, right? Do you have what are you going to do after that when you're out of Regency Vows to vow?
I know. I feel a little like I feel sad about the prospect of being done with this series, and also like I think I'll feel ready by the time I'm finished editing the 5th one. I think it'll feel complete to me. But then I also feel very nervous. I'm like, I don't know. Now I have to write something else and see if my publisher will buy it. I have a lot of ideas. I had a meeting with my agent almost a year ago now. So like well before, like kind of well in advance, because I had so many ideas kind of like floating around that I like put them all in a Word doc and sent her this like 2 or 3 page Word doc of just various pitches for things. And she was like, okay, wow. And she was able to sort of help me hone in on a few of them that she thought were maybe more promising that I could continue thinking about. And so we actually have another meeting scheduled in a few weeks for right after I turn in the draft of the book I'm currently writing, where we are once again going to look at all the ideas I have and try to figure out what ones seem like the most logical next step. I have ideas for like other historical set in other historical time periods. I have an idea for another Regency series. I'm a little unclear whether I maybe want to take a break and do a different time period before I hop back into the Regency. I don't know. So I'm very much looking forward to meeting with my agent, and hopefully she can tell me which of these ideas are good. That's kind of her job. So
but you'll definitely be stay in the genre, or are you looking also outside romance?
I definitely, for now, I want to keep writing romance. I would not be opposed to kind of doing more of like a genre mashup. It's like how like fantasy rom-coms are really having a moment in the past couple of years. Something like that. I have an idea for like almost like a mystery mashup with a rom-com. They're definitely like I think anything I write for at least the foreseeable future would be a romance, and even if there was like sort of another genre element in it, I would like classify it probably first and foremost as a romance. But I am sort of interested in playing around with other genres. But right now I don't see myself writing anything without a romantic element in it. If I was going to, I think it would probably be actually like switching age groups entirely. Like I used to want to write for kids and teens, and that's actually the most, like if I was going to like a full like big career change in terms of like the audience I was writing for and the genre I was writing in, I actually think I would probably be most interested in like switching age groups entirely, which is not something I see at all any time in the near future. So for now it should be, and I think I'll keep writing romances of some sort, and hopefully I don't know, I like writing funny, kind of rompy, hijinks filled rom-coms. That feels sort of like my sweet spot. So I think even if the time period is different, or even if there's like a different genre element, I think that people who read my books would still feel like, oh no, this is a Martha Waters book, which is kind of like what I want.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I guess just to kind of like, before we wrap up, just one more question, like, because again, we've kind of seen you go through this process. How do you feel that you kind of evolved, I guess, or like, how do you feel the past 3 years, like as becoming like from, doing this and, submitting your first book to actually being, a published author? How do you think you've kind of evolved with that, I guess, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I don't know, it's interesting because I find myself sometimes trying to give advice to new like debut authors whose books have either come out in the last like year or so, or who have books coming out sometime in the nearest future. Because I think the biggest thing that's challenging, like making a transition from being an aspiring author to one who's actually published, is it just creates a lot of anxiety. Like you constantly are worried about, will people like my books? Will it sell well? And you kind of have a lot of like lessons you have to learn along the way. Like for me, the one I learned pretty early was to like not read my like Goodreads reviews, which is like one of the like best pieces of advice everyone gives debut authors. And I learned that one pretty fast. And then also it was kind of more generally just like I stopped looking at posts that I was tagged in on Instagram for the most part. I sort of stepped back from Twitter entirely. It was kind of just I think when I first started, I was really, I wanted to really engage as much as possible with the romance community online and stuff, which I still like really value. But I think I've learned to like I need more quiet in my head if I want to be able to keep doing this long term, because it can be really draining and exhausting just to be constantly receiving feedback and constantly just worried about what other people are thinking of you. And so you have to kind of focus on the thing that you first fell in love with, which is writing books. And I think over the past few years, I've kind of gone on this journey of where for a while I was feeling really anxious about a lot of external factors, like how are my books selling and how is the pandemic affecting everything, and had my career been ruined, which is just by bad luck of my debut date, like kind of before it even got started. It made it really hard to write a book with all that going on. Mm-hmm. And so at some point I was able to kind of like refocus and just realize that I can't control how other people feel about my books. I can't control whether there's going to be like a once in a century global pandemic when your book comes out, or a big hit like Bridgerton that will then like revitalize interest in your genre and make your book sales go up. Like it can go both ways. And so it made me really refocus. Just, I like writing books. I have wanted to be a writer since I was a kid, and it's made me really refocus on the thing that I can control, which is just the work I put into each book, and then kind of letting go of the outcomes. And so when I think about how I feel now versus how I felt this time, like 3 years ago, in the early months of the pandemic, right when my first book had come out, and I was so worried and so sad and so anxious about stuff. And I feel much calmer now, because I think it makes you sort of philosophical after a while when you just have been around for a little while and see all the weird things that happen in publishing and in the world. So yeah, I think I'm just less, I think it's made me like, I don't know if it's made me a more confident person, because actually just getting everything you put out reviewed over and over and over again probably makes you less confident after a while. But it's made me, I think, like more philosophical, where I'm like, there's nothing you can do that'll please everyone, because I'll get like people commenting on the same element of the same book, and like one person loves it and one person hates this one thing. And I'm like, then, I mean, what can you do? Like, this is, you're reacting completely opposite to the exact same thing. But yeah, I think it's just made me sort of philosophical about the whole process in a way that makes it possible for me to kind of keep writing and tune out like the wider world for the most part, and not feel so just deeply anxious about all the sort of external factors that go into publishing. So
yeah, that sounds like a difficult process, right?
Yeah.
I would not be able
Yeah.
to keep myself from reading the Goodreads reviews.
It's interesting because other authors,
punishment.
yeah. So I know authors who literally like set up like a block on their like web browser so they won't check. Or I know people who like they'll get their husband or wife to or partner to look for them and kind of show them the good reviews that won't hurt their feelings and stuff. But for me, actually, like it took a little bit of like willpower at first, but actually the more time that passed, the more I found the idea of looking at any of the reviews on Goodreads or like any stuff I'm tagged in, I actually find it very stressful to contemplate now. So it's not like it like transitioned from being a thing that took a lot of willpower to a thing that takes absolutely no willpower. And I actually live in fear of accidentally stumbling upon my own Goodreads page. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That seems really horrifying
I
to
can't even stop
me.
myself from like getting my feelings about Goodreads reviews, like bad reviews of books that I liked but did not write. You know, like, how dare you idiot?
I know. Well, and I find that actually like comforting because I'm like, I'll think about like a book that I really loved that has a bunch of bad reviews on Goodreads because every book has a bunch of bad reviews, even if it's something really popular. And I'll be like, how can these people think this about what is clearly like the best book ever written? And so if there are people saying bad things about these books that I deeply love, then it makes me feel less sad about the inevitability of negative reviews of any piece of art. And also I think working in a library helps me with this as well, because you just witness like how much like people have such a varied taste. And I just like every day I'm helping people find books, and like I'll like hand them one where I'm like, this is one of my favorite books of this genre that you're looking for. And they'll be like, oh no. And I'm like, well, I think you're wrong, but okay. So it's just, I don't know, like walking around a library each day and looking at like the like thousands and thousands of books on the shelves, even if my like teeny tiny like small town library here in Maine, I'm like, wow, there are a lot of books in the world, and a lot of people are gonna hate and love like any book that's put out there. So I mean, let's all calm down a little bit.
That's a good perspective. Yeah. So what have you been reading lately that you thought was really good?
I've been on a bit of a backlist kick for a few historical romance authors. So like all last spring, summer, and fall, I read the entire backlist of Julianne Long, who writes really
She's
incredible.
So good. Oh my God.
I love her so much. I read everything she has ever written other than her contemporary series that I've not read, but I am obsessed with her. And then I finished her backlist and was feeling very bereft. And I have an arc of her book that comes out this summer, and I haven't read it yet.
I just finished it. It's really fun.
I mean, everything she writes is incredible. So I'm saving it as like a post-deadline treat. So I'm going to need to read it.
Oh, that dude is hot.
Most importantly, now I'm on a.
He's a privateer.
Oh, I love it. I love it. But now that I finished my Julianne Long backlist deep dive, I'm on a Meredith Duran backlist deep dive because I'd only read a couple of hers previously, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go in and start from the beginning and read all of her books in the order they were published, including the couple that I've already read. And yeah, she's just incredible. They're all very angsty, and so it's just me like sitting on my couch, like shedding a few tears.
I haven't read her, but I mean, I've seen her covers. I've not actually given her a whirl, so maybe that'll have to be my next.
Really
since I've caught up also to Julianne Long.
They really engage with the like historical time period in really interesting ways. Like they're very like I always joke about mine books being more like period pieces where I kind of like pick and choose like historical elements to like make use of, but I don't like deeply engage with like the actual politics like or historical events of the day very much, whereas hers is very much like there's one set in India in like the 1860s, and there's one that starts out in like China or somewhere and then it transitions back to England. There's one that is most of hers are Victorian, but then there's one that's set in like 1715 during a Jacobite rising, but in England. Like it's just fascinating. Like they're actually like I learn stuff about history when I'm reading them, in addition to them just being like really well executed romances. So that is my current fun project. Because I feel like for the longest time, when you're like an author, especially, like you feel a lot of pressure to like keep up with like new releases and stuff, which I still try to read a lot of new releases, but I've been giving myself more permission to kind of read backlist stuff just for fun because I like it and it's comforting. So I have really been I've been like doling them out like slowly so I don't run out. I have to limit myself because otherwise I'll like read them all in like 3 weeks.
Well, as a reader's advisory librarian, let me officially give you permission to read the backlist because that's the books that are checked in.
And it's also like people want, I don't know, it's such a, like, I thought there's this big disconnect between like how publishing thinks about these things and how like librarians and the public think about these things, where like I don't hate, I still do it, but like, I mean, I'll recommend debuts or like people who only have a couple of books to people, but what people really want is someone with like a big backlist, so that if they like what they read, there's a bunch more. Like I get, like, I mean, I'm a children's librarian, so especially with kids, since they just have no responsibilities other than going to school and like doing their little homework, like they read a lot, and the parents are constantly complaining if their kid has like started a series that just came out like this year or last year, there's only 1 or 2 books, they're like, oh no. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but also as an author, like I'm not going to shame this writer for not writing faster, but no. Like I do.
Why didn't they start
understand.
10 years ago? How dare you? Yeah,
I know. I really feel
they
like
want the Netflix like marathon. You know, that's what they want of books. It's like to be able to Netflix the books, like, you know what I mean? Like just be able to like marathon them.
Yeah,
no, it's just one of those, like, I think publishing needs to get better about promoting backlist titles, actually, because I'm like, I feel like it's like a potential cash cow that's being ignored, because I'm like, I'll tell you what people want. Like they like new shiny things, but also they like an author that's written like 10 plus books so they can just read all of them, and like that's what we should really, I think they should focus on that a little bit more.
Yeah, like the big awards lists at the end of the year are useful to librarians because, of course, you know, what people want is like a popular book. But last year's and the year before are the really useful ones because those books do not have a big holds list.
Yep.
And they already have their little award sticker on them. And, you know. But publishing doesn't seem to realize that very much at all. Okay, so you want to give us your elevator pitch for this book and also push your local bookstore?
Yeah. So To Swoon and To Spar comes out on April 11th. And yeah, it's a fake haunted house marriage of convenience rom-com featuring a very grumpy heroine and a hero who is very befuddled to find himself married to someone who actively seems to dislike him. But not for long. And you can buy signed copies from my...
That sounds like every marriage in the United States. That's amazing. You're married to a grumpy woman, and the man's like, "Why don't you like me?" Like, that's amazing. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Do it again. Sorry.
You're not wrong. But yeah, you can buy signed copies from my local bookstore here in Maine, which is Print, and their website is printbookstore.com, and they're great. And if anyone listening to this happens to live in Maine, I'll be doing a book launch at Print at 7 p.m. on April 11th.
All right, that's very exciting. I'm very happy for you to do your in-person launches now. Is there anything else that you want to say before we sign off?
If anyone wants to come at me on social media, please be nice. The only thing I'm on currently is Instagram, and I'm at Martha B. Waters, but I really try hard to respond to DMs. So if you message me, I will do my best to respond. And I love hearing from readers. So,
well, awesome. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see Martha.
I know.
I love these yearly chats. Like I'm like, I was so excited when my publicist emailed me. I was like, oh yes, I was wondering when I was going to get to do my yearly chat with them.
My annual thing. Yeah, it's your annual.
And I'm so glad that get your annual from us. That's amazing. Scooch closer to the end of the table for Bodice Tipplers, the podcast.
Oh my god! Well, I really appreciate you guys inviting me on every year. It's so nice of you to make the time to do these interviews with me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, we really enjoy it. It's really fun. It's so fun. And thank you so much for coming. And y'all can all run out and buy Martha's new book next month in April. I'm so glad you're reading Julianne Long. That makes me so happy. I've been reading I've been catching the arcs for 2 years now because I've finished up her backlist.
She's so good.
All right. Well, it was great to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
And we will see you next year.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bodice Tipplers is part of the Frolic Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts.